Before I get started on the topic of Elden Ring, I best give a quick introduction as it is the first video on the new channel. My name is Terrell. This is the channel Mind of the Escapist. The whole idea behind this channel is simply me talking about the things I'm passionate about, whether it be video games, films, music, manga, anything that just springs to mind that I want to talk about and discuss. I'm gonna make a video about it and talk. This isn't my first time on YouTube. I actually made YouTube videos way back in 2010. That's when I first started, and I had been doing them for a good 8 years on a separate channel, and then I stopped. I put that channel to bed, but now I'm feeling the passion to return because there's a lot of things I want to discuss, including the topic today. So feel free to subscribe if you like this video and if you want to see some of the other content I got coming in the pipeline. So there's one thing I want to talk about today, and that is From Software's latest game, Elden Ring. Where do I begin with this game, man? Like, let me start by saying, I'm the type of person, I don't really like to get hyped for video games anymore. We done been burned many times, you know, Cyberpunk 2077, Anthem, although I didn't buy that, the new Battlefield, I didn't buy that, but Star Wars Battlefront, you know, there's been so many games recently where they've released in either a broken state or they got the microtransactions or whatever that are just not worth the price at launch to buy. And the developers are deceiving the consumer through various tactics and things like that. So the trust, and I think I speak for a large portion of the gaming community when I say this, the trust from consumer to developer in most cases is broken or on the edge. So for that reason, myself and I imagine many other people don't like to get too hyped about games nowadays. That being said, I'm about to say the most outlandish thing now on the contrary to that. I think Elden Ring might be one of the most defining video games of this new generation. Now that seems crazy to say because the generation's just begun. I've kind of just leapfrogged the Game of the Year discussion and gone straight to Game of the Generation discussion, but I'm gonna get into why, because I'm dead serious. I think Elden Ring is gonna be one of the defining games of the generation, and I'm so confident in saying that, and that's because of From Software and the trust I have in them as developers and the faith I have in them in terms of just what they're able to produce and just how this game looks. I mean, have you seen a trailer for Elden Ring? Like, it speaks for itself. To give a quick overview of my history with From Software, back in 2009, I remember watching YouTube videos of gameplay for Demon Souls. I can't remember how I heard about it. In fact, I think it was IGN's review that made me hear about it, or I may have heard about it earlier than that, but I started watching walkthroughs of Demon Souls, and the weird thing about that was it was so niche back then. It felt like a myth because at that time the game had only released in North America and Japan, so, and I'm based in the UK, and so it wasn't out in the UK yet. Everyone that I knew personally, no one knew what it was. So it was just kind of me, myself, and YouTube just looking at this game, and I was so intrigued by so many elements of it, whether it be the PvP stuff, the way that you could leave messages for other players to find, give warnings and tips, the bosses, the art direction, the whole style of the game, the difficulty, which was a big thing at that time. It really drew me in, but I never got around to playing the game. And of course back then I was probably about 15 back then, so I didn't have a job, couldn't pay for my own game, so I didn't get my hands on the game. But I do remember in October of 2011, walking into HMV on release day for Dark Souls and buying the limited edition and being very excited for that because that was my entry point into From Software's Soulsborne games. And it's kind of crazy to look back now on the past, 12, 13 years and see the run that From Software has been on and the level of consistency with high quality games in this kind of genre that they've birthed themselves over the past decade. And it's pretty crazy, but the only Soulsborne game, if you will, that I haven't played from Software is Sekiro. I've got the Game of the Year edition loaded on my PS5, but I've just not got around to playing it yet, and I'm going to leave that until after Elden Ring now. Bloodborne's one of my favorites because of the art direction, the lore, the gameplay. I loved my experience with Bloodborne. But anyway, back to Elden Ring. There's a number of reasons why I'm very excited for Elden Ring and why I think it will be that defining experience. One key reason is the open world aspect of it. Now, I'm the type of gamer that has grown very tired of open world games over the past few years. In fact, hearing that a game's open world almost puts me off wanting to play it. There's a lot of games recently that I've skipped because it's open world and I know it's just going to be that same formulaic open world system that we're so used to. I mean, like, I remember when games like, you know, of course, Skyrim a decade ago, games like Fallout, some of the early Ubisoft games, Far Cry 3, you know, in the past decade, those games kind of felt fresh with what they were doing with the open world genre. But then over as the decade went on, it just became very stale. Like, everyone was doing the same thing. It was that Ubisoft formula just duplicated in every game. Every Far Cry game after Far Cry 3 is basically a reskin version of Far Cry 3. They even did it with Assassin's Creed. That got a bit stale. They then switched it up to like the more RPG heavy type stuff. But then Valhalla and Odyssey are pretty much reskins of Origins. So it's been very stale. And the other thing I don't like about these open world games as well, especially talking about Assassin's Creed, is the forced grind that they put in there to extend the length of the game. Like, I feel like something, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I feel like something that is not respected within modern video games right now that should be is just pacing, you know? A lot of developers want to go out there and say, oh, our game's 100 hours long. Okay, but I'd rather play a 30-hour game that's well paced and has a good story and engaging gameplay all the way through than play a 100-hour game that feels bloated and I get bored of and is a drag and that I have to grind with. I feel like a lot of developers don't value the pace. It's the same with films. A well-paced film, you know, that the pace can do so much for a film in terms of, you know, making it good and making it engaging. And it can also do so much to ruin it if it's wrong. And it's the same for games, but I feel like a lot of developers kind of forget that. But when it comes to FromSoft and their kind of framework of their games, for them to be now for the first time properly diving into the open world genre, I truly believe that they're going to redefine the open world genre and almost make it much more refreshing than it was before because of their signature traits of their games. And I think that's really going to breathe new life into the genre as a whole. Now, the open-ended exploration that they're going to introduce into Elden Ring is something that has me really excited because I've always loved their level design, and I think they've been one of the best developers in the past decade when it comes to crafting brilliant levels that really draw you in, that are really immersive and exciting to explore. But that keep you hooked, and they kind of have to do that because of the nature of their games and how you're constantly going through these levels non-stop. Finding new shortcuts, finding new areas, finding secrets, things like that. They had to master that to make those type of games work, and they really did. But now the fact that they got the open playing field of a whole open world, I'm really intrigued to see how they kind of bring that very detailed level design, a very purposeful level design into an open world space, and how they can make that interesting. And I've kind of dodged a lot of stuff with Elden Ring. I've watched the official trailers I've watched, but everything else I've kind of stayed away from. I've watched a bit of network test footage, but I don't want to see too much from the game, to be completely honest, because I feel like those games are at their best, and you know, part of the experience of those games is going into it kind of blind and discovering things for yourself, and then kind of conversing with the community and learning things together. That's such a big part of the experience of From Software games. I don't want to see too much beforehand, but from what I have seen, it looks like they're gonna have the open world aspect as you'd expect in terms of big spacious open areas, but then you're going to have, say, like your legacy dungeons and other areas that are going to be much more kind of linear levels that will feel more like your Dark Souls locations and your Demon Souls locations. So they're going to kind of have the best of both. But what really intrigues me about that open world aspect of it is they're going to bring their gameplay elements such as bosses, other enemies, things like that out into the open as well. So whilst traversing the lands between, you'll encounter some mini bosses and things like that. And the intriguing side of that is not as linear as it has been in some of the past games because of the nature of the open world. If you, and they've described it this way, if you encounter a boss and you find it too difficult or something like that, you can literally just hop on a Torrent, which I think is Torrent is his name, the horse, your spirit horse, and just dip and go find something else to do. You could literally start the game and go to wherever, you know, your heart's content draws you, wherever your eye draws you. And that's that kind of Breath of the Wild style exploration, which I really appreciate, because Lord knows gamers are tired of that Ubisoft open the map, there's a million markers on the map, go here, go here, go here, go here, go here, telling you to go everywhere, and you don't actually have any real interest to explore and go to a location, other than the fact that the map is just telling you to go there because there's something you got to do. This type of gameplay style with the open world that Breath of the Wild did, and that what this seems to be doing, is where it's more drawing your attention away from a map and markers, and more allowing you to focus on the actual locations that you're seeing, and then you deciding by just your eye and your own exploration, right, I want to go see what's over here, and then you go over there and you see what's there, might find a dungeon, might find new weapon, different enemy types, blah 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 blah. But that's much more engaging than just your typical map markers and that old kind of formulaic generic style of open world. So I'm really excited to see how they bring their style of game into an open world, and I think the way they're going to do it is going to really feel refreshing. Fans already know that the combat in From Software games has always been elite, it's always been engaging, it's always been very fun to master and to learn. I think the combat looks insane in this game. I've seen like the heavy emphasis on magic and the spell casting, but also your different kind of combat builds with melee weapons and things like that. Spirit summons that you can use. I saw the overview trailer they released yesterday, and I swear to God, I've seen the player spirit summon a dragon's head to breathe fire on another enemy. When I saw that, I was like, if From Software are showing that in a trailer, what else have they got cooking, man? This game's going to be insane in terms of combat, but that's another aspect which I think is really going to bring a lot of hours of gameplay into the game. I haven't decided what class I'm going to play as yet, but I already know that I'm going to want to play through the game multiple times to experiment with different builds and different play styles, and that's a testament to the combat style that they've built up in the game, and they've always been very good with that. But now more than ever, I think I'm going to play through Elden Ring multiple times, more than any other FromSoft game, and I already predict it's probably going to be my most played game of this year, to be completely honest. Another thing that I'm really intrigued by is the grander mythology of Elden Ring, the lands between, and the actual story and what's going on there. Now, for those that don't know, George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire fame, he worked with Miyazaki on creating the lore for this game, so like the characters and things like that. And the lore's always been very good and very interesting, I've found, in FromSoft games, but I feel like he's going to now take it to the next level. Now, for those who haven't played From Software games or aren't accustomed to From Software games, how the lore really is in their games typically is there's a lot of mystique surrounding the story and lore in their games. Things aren't explicitly said all the time. It leaves a lot to interpretation sometimes, and it's not outright said. It's not always as simple as, you know, this NPC says this and this is the story, and you go to this location and there's a cutscene and this is the next part. It's never really that simple with their games. You kind of piece, it's like a puzzle, you know, and you kind of piece together the puzzle of the story, the world, the lore, and everything that drives the world that you're in through your exploration of, you know, what some NPCs may say. They give hints every now and then through this item that you may have picked up. In games like Demon Souls, at the different archstones you get, and at the different checkpoints you get different bits of information that kind of build the world. But there's always usually, you know, puzzle pieces, if you will, that don't always entirely fit together. But then you use your mind to kind of connect the pieces with, you fill in the blanks basically. And I kind of like that aspect of it, because that's how this game and From Software's games in general really encourage that kind of community interaction. And that's something that I think the fans really value about their games, is that you can go on Reddit, you can go on Twitter, anywhere really, and discuss with fans about these games and your experiences, and every player will almost have a a different experience to a certain extent, and will draw different conclusions from different things, and then you get to discuss with different people about your experiences and come to different conclusions, and it just makes the whole kind of experience of these games much more engaging and much more fun on a community level as well. But yeah, I'm basically expecting the lore of this game to be much more expansive compared to previous titles, whilst maintaining the mystique of it as well. And then the thing that's kind of pretty obvious about From Software's games, so when talking about Elden Ring, this is obvious, but of course the boss battles, I'm really excited for those, and for how many bosses are probably in this game. Now, I read somewhere that apparently there's 13 main bosses, which sounds kind of low, but if there's 13 main bosses, then I know there's going to be a hell of a lot more, side bosses and mini bosses out in the open world and in these different dungeons. I'm interested to see what the difficulty scaling is going to be like on the game. One of the bosses, I forgot his name, is it Margit, or something like that. One of the bosses in the network test was apparently was pretty hard, and he was like the first boss, and apparently they've nerfed him a little bit with the patch, because they said he was a bit too difficult for that portion of the game. But I think some of those end game bosses are going to come with like 3-4 different phases and attack sets, and it's going to be crazy, but I'm really excited. But I'm a fantasy head. I love fantasy fiction, and something that I've always appreciated about From Software, and I genuinely think this is something that they do better than most, if not all, in the medium of entertainment, not just gaming, across film, across comics, across in general. Their creature design and art direction, I'm obsessed with it. I've got the art books from Dark Souls and things like that. Like, I love it. And seeing the trailers, particularly the one they released yesterday, the overview trailer, and just getting a glimpse of some of these creature designs they got going on in this game is just blowing my mind, and I can't wait to explore and discover even more what they've got going on that side of it, because like, they always impress me with that. They really do. Their creativity with the art direction and the creatures and things like that, it has no bounds, and that has got me real excited. Like, in the trailer there was basically like this boss. He looked like a boss, not a standard enemy, that was basically like a spider, but it was a hand. It was like a giant severed hand that was running around like a spider. It's just crazy shit, man. Just crazy shit. There's a dragon that basically wields lightning in one of the trailers. He like snatches lightning out of the sky and uses an attack. Like, and there's the Wolf Warrior, who some people have been speculating that the Wolf Warrior is a player transformation, not a boss. I'm more leaning to the fact that it's probably going to be a boss, not a player transformation. But either way, that's just some cool shit, man. That's some cool imagery. Like a wolf with a sword on his back, coming like Guts from Berserk. That's some crazy shit. But FromSoft, they just go beast mode with that stuff, no pun intended. Now, the final aspect of this game that I want to talk about today is the online elements, mainly the co-op side of it. These elements have been present in previous FromSoft games to a degree. They've always been quite limited. I feel like from what I've read, From Software are going to give you a bit more leeway with the co-op aspects of this game, and because it's an open world game, that gives you the freedom to actually explore the lands between with your friends or whoever you summon, which I think could be pretty cool for a co-op style experience in this open world. And I'm assuming it has its regular PvP invasions as well. I can't remember if that's been confirmed. I'm pretty sure it has been. But I also feel like with that open world design, of course, co-op in an open world game is nothing new, but for the type of game that this will be, it's gonna feel fresh again. It's just gonna be another aspect that's gonna help that feel fresh. But it's crazy because, what was it, 2019 we first started hearing about this game, and it was a long time until we actually saw footage, and first there was that leak and all of that. There's been a whole pandemic that started and gone by, but we are finally in the week of Elden Ring. It's just a few days away, which is crazy to think. I've got my collector's edition on order, which I'm so happy about, because I missed the initial pre-order phase and they all sold out. Now I've got like limited edition or collector's editions for every Soulsborne game that has one that I own thus far. So that's Dark Souls limited edition, Dark Souls 2 Steelbook Edition, Dark Souls 3 Collector's Edition, Bloodborne Collector's Edition. The only one I don't have is Sekiro because that's digital. And then Demon Souls on PS5 didn't come with one. Which, just for the record, because I mentioned Demon Souls earlier, I finally played it now through the PS5 version, 12 years later, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I might make a separate video talking about Demon Souls because I had a great time playing it. I loved it, in fact, and it is my favourite game as of right now on PS5. My favourite game of this current generation, although it is a last gen game, but this remake is my favourite game of the generation. But yeah, collector's edition of Elden Ring on the way. I do want to quickly just say, in the description is a link to my Twitch channel. Subscribe there if you want, because I am going to be live streaming Elden Ring this weekend, starting on Friday. And I have a feeling, because of where I ordered it, I've actually got 2 collector's editions on order, one with Amazon and one with Simply Games. Now, Simply Games usually send their games early, so I have a sneaking suspicion I might be lucky and get Elden Ring on Thursday, in which case, if I do, I'll be streaming from Thursday. But subscribe to the Twitch channel for that. And yeah, that's me discussing Elden Ring. I will be making another video sometime soon, probably talking about Elden Ring again. I do plan to give some first impressions and to review the game. And there's some films I want to talk about soon as well. So yeah, hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content in future. And yeah, I'll speak to you guys sometime soon.